Metro TV will be starting in 30 seconds. See if we can get people in the room. Technically not late at all. Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, May 14th. Is that right? Yes. It's Wednesday, May 14th. It's about 4:04. This is the Budget Committee. I'm Councilman Kevin Kramer, Chair of the committee. I'm joined by my Vice Chair, Marcus Winkler. Also joining us in chambers are Councilman Hudson, Councilwoman Purvis, Councilman Reno Weber, Councilwoman Chappell, Councilwoman Parker, Councilwoman McCraney, Councilman Linenger, Councilman Herndon. Make sure I didn't miss anyone. Oh, Councilman Piagentini. I don't know how I overlooked him. Joining us virtually are council members Bast, Shamika Parrish-Wright, and Woolridge. I believe that captures everybody that's here. I am going to make a simple, quick request before we get going today. We have 2 different hearings and lots of questions. I will ask if we could please limit our initial questions to 2 or 3 questions, if you will. If you have follow-ups that are important in those 2 or 3 questions, certainly I would consider those just a follow-up question. If you find that you're asking follow-up questions that equates to a second or third question, please decide that 1 question was enough for you to get started, and then you can duck out of the queue and re-enter, okay? A lot of people want to have a chance to ask questions, and if we get stuck in that place, sometimes folks don't have a chance. So that's where we'll start. I'll remind my colleagues that we've asked the folks when they come to be prepared and ready for us to go, and so I'm going to jump right in. We'll begin today with Metro Development, followed immediately with codes and regulations. Will the clerk please read the required notice for virtual meetings into the record?
This meeting is being held pursuant to KRS 61.826 and Council Rule 5A, read in full.
Thank you. The mayor has proposed a $15.4 million operating budget and $12.5 million capital budget for economic development. As a reminder, we're not going to have opening comments, but we'll begin immediately with questions. So welcome, Director O'Brien. Let me start us off by asking about the Community Ambassador Program. The mayor is recommending expanding this program with $250,000 additional funding to the Nulu area. Who administers this program, and why the expansion into Nulu?
Thank you, Councilman. Again, Jeff O'Brien, Executive Director for Economic Development. The Ambassador Program is administered by the Economic Development Cabinet. We have a contract with Block by Block, who actually has the employees that are out in several parts of our community. Right now, the ambassadors for the Community Ambassador Program work in West Louisville. They work in the Highlands on Bardstown and Baxter Avenue. They work in the Beachmont neighborhood on Woodlawn Avenue, and they work in downtown along the east edge of downtown. What we've received this year is a request from the Nulu Business Association to expand the ambassador program onto the East Market Street corridor to help with litter pickup and some of the other ambassador services that we see in our other neighborhoods.
Thank you. Councilman Piagentini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to sum this up, but it's related to 3 funds. And if this gets too like operationally tactical, we could take it offline, but it is related to the budget, but there's like this hanging chat on how we're doing these funds, right? So we have the South End Business Attraction Capital Project, we have the East End Infrastructure Improvement Fund, and the Downtown Infrastructure Fund. I'm curious as to like the mechanics of this, right? How will these funds operate? Who is operating them? How will decisions be made? How will the money be used? Can we, and if it's different by each, again, I'm trying not to make this too complex of a question, but the best you can answer how they will operate and then how decisions will be made would be great.
Yeah, on the South End Business Fund, our plan for that is to deploy it via the Metco tool. So that tool we'll be pretty able to deploy that pretty quickly. And again, that fund is going to be directed toward the South End and particularly toward favoring South End retail businesses, and I'm using this as an example. So looking at corridors like Preston Highway and Dixie Highway, places where we've had some significant retail vacancy for a long time, trying to refill those vacancies. Our goal with that is to look at a combination of low interest loans and grants. If we're going to do facade improvements or capital improvements, we want to be open to doing something like that. On the Downtown Infrastructure Fund, that fund is meant to be deployed with some of the significant downtown developments that we are looking at. So trying to enhance some of those downtown developments with some public infrastructure improvements around those developments. So those funds would be deployed via development agreements with projects as they move forward. And really, that's going to kind of be a first come, first serve. So if we have projects that are online and really starting to come forward, we would consider using that fund. The East End Infrastructure Fund, I think that's one where we're open to a little bit more input. Again, that's really something to try to get some of these big East End projects. We know that infrastructure, particularly road infrastructure, is a major problem in the East End. I know that you're aware of that when we have when we have development zoning cases come through. In fact, I think they're having one right about now. So I think that we're a little bit. I think we're a little bit more flexible on how we work that fund to make sure that we are advancing something significant in the East End that is going to relieve some of the traffic pressures that residents are facing in that area.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chair, so what we can maybe even do in the very short term, we might even be able to sort it out between now and the budget. I mean, there have been ideas and projects proposed that, one, I've gotten partial funding for over 2 years. Others, we've not done funding for yet. So it may be that we can talk to the districts that have been impacted, as well as Public Works and others, and just say, hey, like, do we have $3 million worth of projects right now, or $3 million worth of, we could start some of these projects and then look to future budgets to help fill the gap, these types of things. So we might be, as opposed to a process, define it and just write it into the budget too.
Yeah, and I think that we're really open and flexible to that. Again, and what you just said, Councilman, is exactly right. We are really looking to use those funds to advance something. So if we can get something done, and even if it's an intersection improvement, if it's advancing something into a planning stage, so we can go ask for additional funding from the state or in the future from Metro Council, we're open to that. So we're really flexible with it, and we'll be happy to either talk about that through the budgeting process or after the budget is approved, and making sure that we're working with the East End districts.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Winkler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Jeff, thanks for being here. My question really focuses on LEDA. I'd like you to talk a little bit about, how should we think about the city's economic development department relative to LEDA from a budgetary perspective? What role are your department going to play versus LEDA? We've got many members of your team that are functionally on loan to LEDA. I believe the number is, it's 17, if I'm not mistaken. Is it proposed to be a similar level this year? And sort of can you just talk about the overall strategy and then what the strategy for ongoing direct financial support and indirect financial support through labor? So if you could just maybe give a couple-minute overview of the strategy as you see it.
Yeah, I think really the strategy here is getting Louisville into what is a national best practice. So we are seeing all of our peer cities really moving toward a model where we have a public-private partnership. And the way that we work together is, we work with LIDA and the LIDA staff is working with the private industry to really drum up projects and try to bring projects to Louisville, and then they bring them to the city economic development side, and we creatively work on solutions to bring those projects to fruition. So you'll continue to see LIDA staff come in front of the Labor and Economic Development Committee presenting projects that have state incentives like our traditional Kentucky Business Initiative or the KIA or the Kentucky Jobs Retention projects. You'll see those continue to come. You'll see our LIDA staff continue to come to that. Where we have to deploy like a more creative incentive where we have to come to Metro and ask for either funding for, say, via a TIF or an IRB, you're going to see me or someone on my team that's going to be working on those redevelopment projects. With LIDA, we're already seeing results with moving to this public-private partnership. Our year-over-year data from January to April of 24 to January to April 25, we've seen a doubling in jobs created using the LIDA model, and we've seen a tripling in CapEx. And so I think this is a model that is going to help us be more flexible and nimble, responding to businesses, responding to situations like we had with KFC leaving. It's going to give us more direct input and direct line to those businesses and direct solutions on how to resolve those issues.
So should we think of LIDA as basically LIDA is the economic development department for, and I know it's not a department, but I'm just going to use this, it is the economic development department for the city, and then the actual sort of economic development department of the city handles the governmental portions, but the primary front door is LIDA.
Yeah, that's correct. They are our, and this is a wonky term, they are our local economic development organization. That means something in the world of economic development. So they are the front door if you're looking to expand, stay in Louisville, be attracted to Louisville. You're going to go to Trevor Paul and his team, and Trevor and many of his team are with us this afternoon. But they are our front door. And when you're going to talk about redevelopment incentives, when you're going to talk about the full gamut of concierge services going through the development process, you're going to come to me and my team. So we're really functioning hand in hand. I don't see that changing. I see that just getting stronger as we go over and over time.
Okay, so just going back to my first question, which was really not a strategy question, sort of a whole strategy. It was a strategy question, budget strategy. So should we anticipate this level or some similar level of support for LIDA indefinitely, because this is functionally, we are, again, maybe a bad term, but we're functionally outsourcing economic development to LIDA through this partnership?
Yeah, I really see it twofold. Number one, there is going to be the ongoing indefinite funding in Metro staff. We think it's very important that we have Metro staff that's committed to this. We've seen the model kind of over time shift between city doing economic development and a private outsourcing doing economic development. As you all know, economic development is a relationship business, and so the more that we can maintain those relationships, and Metro has control over the good number of those employees, the better. I think in terms of the operational enhancement that is requested this year and was requested in the current fiscal year budget, the $1.5 million, I see that as being something that is ongoing as LIDA stays in a startup mode. I mean, they were launched as a separate 501c6 in July of 2024. So I can't put a timeline on that, but from the staff investment, I think that would be something that is a long-term indefinite investment.
Councilwoman Parrish Wright.
Thank you. Councilman Winkler addressed some of my questions, but I have some more. And as, you said Mr. Tyler, is he here?
Mr. Paul, yes.
Yeah, okay. So my question's around now, and not to count anybody's pockets. I work 2 jobs, so I'm not trying to count anybody's pockets, but from my understanding, this salary is $350,000 with a lot of benefits. And I want to know, how is that going to benefit the people of Louisville? Because we have budget concerns, and I had concerns last year with LEDA, so I was very vocal about that. So this is not a personal attack, but I'm really concerned because some of the new projects and the things that you all are putting under your belt were already started. For instance, you have the West Louisville, a lot of initiatives were already in progress. So I really want to see, where is our return on investment for this type of level of position? And are the 17 people that Councilman Winkler mentioned considered to be Louisville Metro employees?
So I'm not, so first and foremost, Mr. Paul is not a Louisville Metro employee. He has an agreement with LEDA. LEDA is a dues collecting organization, so they collected dues in the range of $2.5 to $3 million. Those dues are paying for Mr. Paul's salaries and benefits. Just because it's a startup organization, we have an arrangement with them to process his payments, so he does get a paycheck. It looks like he's a Metro employee, but he is not. The funds we are being reimbursed by the Louisville Economic Development Alliance. So in terms of his salary and benefits, that was something that was negotiated with the LEDA board and Mr. Paul. So that the Metro government didn't have anything to do with that. What Metro government did do is we negotiated the agreement with the LEDA board, and we have that agreement to lease those employees. So the 17 employees are Metro employees. They are paid by Louisville Metro government. Their salary and benefits are paid both by Louisville Metro government. There's no proposal in this budget to change that. I believe there are 11 filled positions and six vacant positions that are Louisville Metro positions, and Mr. Paul and his team are working to fill those vacancies.
Thank you. And I'm keeping it to 3 questions. Are these existing or projected jobs full-time, permanent, or salary? I know you explained some of them, but the ones that you're trying to...
All the LEDA jobs are, save for one, all the LEDA jobs that are Louisville Metro funded are full-time salary positions. There's one part-time salary position that is leased over to LEDA, but I believe we are going to convert that to a full-time position. That position was frankly vacated because frankly we had too much work for a part-time employee. So.
Understood. My last question is, just speaking on what I talked about in the beginning, Norton West is one of the things that have already been in the world, and we've been seeing it. I've visited, I've participated with it as much as possible. And Stellar Snacks is already, out of the list of announced notable projects, what is really under LEDA's belt?
Well, again, the Metro, other than the Norton Hospital, all the projects, the Stellar Snacks, that was being worked by LEDA staff. So Mr. Paul wasn't here yet, but that was worked by LEDA staff. Our staff was working directly with the State Cabinet for Economic Development to bring that particular job here. So basically, any new job attraction or retention project that is coming through our Economic Development Office is being handled by LEDA. The city, the staff that is Metro employees and in the Metro Economic Development Department are not working those retention jobs. We do assist them when it comes time to get in front of Metro Council or help them put a package together to be competitive with another locality. But all those jobs are an investment is being worked by the LEDA staff.
Thank you.
Councilman Hudson?
Thank you, Chair. Most of my questions have already been asked and answered, so thank you for that. And I'll just say, having been a part of the task force that was put together from day zero to create what we now know as LEDA, I want to commend the mayor's office for putting that together, and the process that they went through was thorough. I fully support LEDA and the efforts that they're undertaking. I think we got the right person selected as a president and CEO, and I look forward to the results and for future projects. Thank you.
Councilman Reno Weber?
Thanks so much for being here. I'd like to talk a little bit about the focus on workforce, because we hear a lot about the struggles that employers are having finding the right talent. And I think usually we talk about that in tech talent, and we talk about that in nursing shortages, and I do think those are really important. And, but I'd really love to hear a little bit about your thoughts about more of the essential workers. You know, if we're going to be an economy that essentially stays focused on, you know, we make stuff, we move stuff, and then we entertain people, we have to have those people who can build things, who understand that. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that, but particularly also about the essential role of having places for those people to live. So how is our economic development strategy thinking about housing, and how do we address the housing crisis that we have in our community?
Yeah, I think that housing is economic development. I'll start with that. I mean, we have a need here to grow our city, and we're not going to grow our city without growing our housing. I think our economic development strategy on housing is really looking at our urban core and making sure that we have the best possible regime of development regulations and incentives to make sure that we fill the urban core up, because we have a lot of space to grow housing in the urban core. And so I think that's important. It's not going to absolve us from having to go out and in the suburban parts of our county and the more rural parts of our county and look at development of farmland. I mean, that's still gonna happen. But I think that our economic development strategies around bringing in mixed-use, vibrant places all throughout our county. So that's one of the reasons that we looked at that South End Business Development Fund. We really see that we're getting a lot of housing on places like Preston Highway and Dixie Highway, but we're not seeing the amenities necessarily follow behind that. So that was one of the reasons that we proposed it in this year's budget. In terms of workforce, it's absolutely critical. We saw Michael Gritton from Kentuckiana Works is here. So we are very focused on our essential workforce. And I think there's three things that we're really focused on. There's always the upskilling of our adult population. So we have our Kentuckiana Works has its adult training centers. We have Code Louisville, Code Kentucky that focuses on getting people those tech skills, and those still go very well. The placements in those two tech-focused programs are down a little bit, but that's really mainly due to the larger economy and some challenges in the larger tech economy. But those programs are still up and running and are successful. I think a new focus for us, and this was some state money that Michael was able to bring in with some of the other workforce investment boards in the state, was we were able to get some new money into helping high school senior placement, so making sure that those seniors that, excuse me, that weren't going to go to college right away or have a job coming right out of high school, that we were doing some help in fostering connections and getting them to jobs. And those are going to be that's going to be our essential workforce, but we're not just trying to get them jobs, we're trying to get them career path jobs. Right. So whether it's, I know, working at UPS and handling packages is not necessarily the most glamorous thing, but I was with UPS this morning at their LabPort announcement for Zoetis, and this was, it's exciting because you have somebody that's a package handler and they're working their way up into tech-focused jobs, and that's an important part of it. I'd say that the other part of our workforce that's very important is our disconnected youth. So in Jefferson County, we have around 12,000 residents, young people between 16 and 24. I think I got that number right, Michael, did I? Good. It's between 16 and 24. And there's an investment in this budget, again, in the spot and making sure that we are getting those people the training they need. One of my team members and I had the opportunity to go with Michael and tour the new spot at 2nd and Chestnut, thank you, and a couple months ago, and we heard a couple stories from some young people that had some problems with the law. They were getting their OSHA training to make sure so they could become welders. And again, I'm talking about building stuff here with you all today. And if we don't have people that are working those construction jobs and getting into those pre-apprenticeship programs, we're not going to have that workforce. So I think that there are investments here in workforce. We're going to continue to invest in the spot. We're going to continue to invest in our work with JCPS and continue to invest in adult training, whether it's Code Louisville, Code Kentucky, or our regular adult training work. So that's something that Michael and his board work very closely on every day. and
That
critical
is
to us.
awesome. I love hearing you say that. I also was at the spot there and at the other one that opened recently. Just amazing stuff. Also, glad to hear you talk about fair chance workers. I was at Goodwill yesterday for an expungement clinic they were doing, and there was a line all the way down the hall, which is awesome. And people want to work; they want to reduce those barriers. And I commend Michael Gritton for being such an innovative part of that for so long and continuing to innovate. The other two things that we really hear within this workforce as barriers are transit. I cannot get from where I can live to where there are jobs that I can qualify for, and childcare. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how that fits into the economic development strategy.
Yeah, I think that you'll see, I'm not going to steal Laura Grabowski's thunder, but we do have some investments in 24-hour childcare as part of our CDBG budget this year. So that is something that we are focused on. It's that world intersects with mine, so we want to make sure that we're thinking about that. In terms of transit, it's a challenging conversation. Transit agencies across America have really had challenges getting to people, but really, I think, again, if we look at our economic development strategy, trying to densify our urban corridors, our commercial corridors, make TARC more efficient, I think that's going to be important. We've really encouraged them to focus on those high-frequency networks. We don't want to leave people behind, but trying to get people to those major corridors is going to be important. I think that's going to be something we continue to work with Ozzie Gibson and his team over at TARC.
Awesome. And last of my three. One of the things that we also talk about is quality of place. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how you guys are thinking about intersecting with parks, with the arts, with creating welcoming spaces.
I think with arts, I think we've obviously had a close encounter with Sundance Film Festival last year, but I think that's really helped us grow.
Curse you, Boulder.
Yeah, I think that's helped us kind of grow our partnerships and think about arts a little bit more creatively. Jessica Kincaid and her team, she's got a small, mighty team trying to help arts organizations. Right now, they're really keeping our major arts organizations afloat in the post-COVID environment has been a challenge. So I think that we try to interface and build on those quality places where can we build around our parks and leverage that green infrastructure we have, think creatively about connecting places, whether it's through trails or bike lanes, or I know nobody likes me to say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I think thinking about how we get people from place to place in this community, whether it's no matter how you choose, whether you're walking, riding a bike, in a car, on a bus, whatever.
Thank you so much.
Councilman Lininger?
Yes, thank you. And this is just a quick clarification. I hope this doesn't count against me. Earlier, when you were responding to Councilwoman Parrish-Wright, you mentioned our staff when you were talking about the work that has previously been done. And that was a slip of the tongue, right? That's not our staff. That's LEDA staff, reflecting that. Okay. And you also mentioned, and this is going to get kind of into the meat of what I want to talk about, that Director Paul, and it's good to see you again, and I'm glad that you're finally in the chambers. Sorry that you weren't able to make it the other day, but that his salary is paid for, his compensation is from LEDA members, their dues. And that seat at the table is pretty expensive, right, for people to join LEDA. And I guess I'm concerned that isn't LEDA kind of an explicit amplification of private interest over the public interest when it comes to how we are structuring our economic development and the direction that it's going and where we're going with economic development. It's sort of a question of who does Paul serve? Does Paul serve the dues-paying members of LEDA, or does Paul serve the city of Louisville? Is that, where is the question about public interest and what master is being served here?
Well, I think that's why it's a public-private partnership. I think that frankly, business interests and public interests are being served. I don't think it's mutually exclusive either way. When I say our staff, I still think of the Metro staff members that work for LEDA as part of our team, my team. I'm not their supervisor, but they're part of our team. And I think that's the way I see it, is that whether the LEDA board members that are paying into it, everybody stands to benefit if all of our business community, I'm talking about the biggest business to the littlest business, from the fanciest place in our community to the place that needs the most help in our community. If we're investing in all of those places in our community and using all of our tools at our disposal, then we're going to have a better community to live in. I mean, that's the goal of LEDA. I think that the significant public investment in staff people helps keep the public interests in play in LEDA.
Okay. I'm going to skip my next one because I feel like, well, no, I guess I still want to ask, so I have heard a lot of concerns about small business and again, like I said, that seat at the table is kind of explicitly geared towards large corporations here in Louisville. And small business has felt like the new LEDA structure and the way that economic development is going to be done in the city going forward really de-emphasizes the viewpoint and voice of small business. Do you feel that there's any way that we can address that in staffing or anything?
I don't think there's any way we can address it in staffing. I think that we need to address it programmatically with LEDA. We have a small business lending tool, Metco, which has historically been a tool that's kind of bumped along, lending, in the $2 million range here and there, using federal funds. I think we've done a decent job with that. I think that tool has great potential to leverage even more in our community. So that's, again, why we proposed a small business development fund for the South End this year, again, thinking about the areas that are seeing seeing a lot of housing come in, but not necessarily seeing the quality retail and services follow behind that housing, so trying to incentivize that. I think that we need to continue to build our programs. I think LEDA gives us more opportunities to activate the private sector to help us with our small businesses. I would say that a lot of our city and state economic development tools, and I'm talking about the global R, so in the United States, are focused toward large businesses. And I think that having these deploying public-private partnerships to get creative on attracting and helping small businesses along is vitally important for us. So again, I think the LEDA model is only going to help us enhance the small business community versus just focusing on large business operations. Again, the Kentucky Business Initiative and those tools and those tools that exist in Indiana or Tennessee or Ohio, they're all geared towards people that can invest millions of dollars and create tens of hundreds of jobs. So and have the biggest tax burdens, quite frankly. So that's where we need to be creative and work with LEDA to deploy those.
Okay. And then my final question, yesterday we had HR in, and some of the questions directed to HR were about addressing some of the staffing problems we have in Metro, and Councilman Hawkins asked, why can't we have contracted workers come in and fill these positions? And HR was really pretty clear that contracted workers were sort of a overall drag on the effectiveness in our spending on staffing. And so I'm confused, why is the ambassador program, which we're looking to expand, wholly contracted outside of the city? Why are these not city employees?
Well, frankly, because we have a contractor that was doing this work in our community already. While I would say there are some challenges in bringing on contract employees, I would also say that there's some advantages in terms of cost. I mean, we're not directly paying for the salary and benefits or doing the hiring for the block by block. This is a nationwide organization that's actually headquartered here in Louisville. So they are doing this work among many other communities, large and small, across America, and we're able to leverage their knowledge and their ability to go and find staff and to have hiring practices and training programs and learned experiences in the field, and we can leverage that here. And that's not necessarily something that we can do in our local hiring pool. Now, all the employees for Block by Block are local residents, but I think that there are some advantages to using contractors for programs like an ambassador program.
Yeah, I guess I'm just concerned because when I look at the work portfolio for the ambassadors, I see a lot of work that has traditionally been done by Public Works employees, Parks employees, and, you know, I don't want us to see us, you know, trying to, and you say that it's, you know, that we're, you know, it's a less outlay, you know, we're getting the work cheaper, but union work is the best work that we can have, and if we're trying to avoid having union employees, I find that concerning. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We're joined a bit ago by Councilman Owen. I also note that Councilman Hawkins and Councilman Joseph have both arrived. I think that, and Councilman Reed has joined us virtually. Next in the queue is Councilwoman Bast.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I have a few questions. In addition to the $1.5 million that LEDA received last year, what is the full cost of Metro-funded employees, Metro-funded facilities, and Metro-funded technology being utilized for LEDA?
I believe the cost on that is between $2 and $2.5 million. We'll follow up with you on the exact number, but it's between $2 and $2.5 million.
And that's for the funded employees and facilities and technology? That's like a total, an estimate?
Correct.
Okay. Why do we maintain the government employees, and why doesn't LEDA hire them?
Again, I think that there is a lot to be, again, this is a public-private partnership, so to make sure that we have our public interests that are being carried forward, I think it's very important that we have public employees as part of this. Again, the other thing that's important here is that we have continuity and relationships in our economic development staff. So I think there's remains a lot of important features in having our Metro employees remain with LEDA, remain with Metro and go to LEDA. So we see some distinct advantages in terms of relationships and continuity, and then again, in maintaining public interest in this public-private partnership.
Do you know how many LEDA employees there are versus Metro employees, or what the number on both those are?
There are 17 positions that are on loan to LEDA and are controlled by LEDA. 11 of those positions are filled. 6 of them are vacant, and we're in the process of hiring for them.
What's the difference in GLI and LEDA?
LEDA is the local economic development organization. They are only focused on Jefferson County. They only do project attraction, retention, and growth for Jefferson County. GLI does project attraction for the entire region. They are a regional economic development organization. So again, LEDA is the local economic development organization. GLI is the regional economic development organization. The distinction here is that as our local economic development organization, LEDA is recognized by the State Cabinet for Economic Development as our local group to go to with projects. So when there are projects coming to the state that are looking for incentives, the state will go to LEDA. GLI will often attract projects from outside of the region and bring them to the state or bring them directly to LEDA, and then we'll determine which organization is best suited to work the project. But it's all most of our economic development projects are worked directly with the State Cabinet and Louisville Economic Development Alliance.
Okay, and then my last question kind of touched on what my previous, what Leninger had to say. So I understand it's a $50,000 buy-in to be on this board. And that seems very exclusive to me. I just curious, where does that leave people who may want to be involved but can't pay that buy-in?
There are some small business seats where there is less buy-in. And I'm sorry, I do not. I'm not I don't control the LEDA dues collection. I believe they do have some lower thresholds though, and there's a range of dues that can be paid by people wanting to serve on LEDA.
Is there annual dues attached to that also?
Yes, there are annual dues.
Do you know what that is?
The total amount is in the $2 to $3 million range. What the threshold limits are for the dues, I'd have to get back to you on that information.
Okay, yeah, I'd appreciate that. Okay, that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you. I have one topic, but a couple of questions about the one topic. And just to remind folks, there's like 8 people in the queue behind me. So I'm going to try to be respectful of that. Simmons College, Westover campus. We are funding a project. What is the project? How much does it cost? Are we paying the total cost of the project? Why is that important to Metro? And have we ever funded university projects in this way before, other than, say, for instance, U of L TIFs?
So Simmons College, the request here is for $3 million to help fund their STEAM campus. They've acquired land at 45th and Broadway, and they'll be creating a STEAM campus, and so that is a portion of the project. I can get you the full project cost. But $3 million is not the full project cost. And they'll be building, and like I said, a STEAM campus. So for arts,
What is a STEAM campus?
Science, technology,
Oh,
engineering.
STEM, like STEM? Okay.
Well, STEAM STEAM adds arts, so you have arts
okay.
after engineering.
Have we ever done a funding project like this before for any other universities?
We'll have to get back to you on that if we've done a direct appropriation outside of the TIFs.
Okay, and why is this important to Metro?
I think it's Simmons College. We have a historically black college and university here in Louisville, Kentucky, and Simmons is that HBCU. And I think that it's very important to support their work. It provides more opportunities, more educational opportunities for our residents. This is a part of our community that could really benefit from some major investment in educational infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Purvis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. O'Brien, going back to LEDA, trying to understand their purpose and mission, you said that we have loaned them employees. Are we paying for those employees, or is?
Yes, we have 17 employees that are currently and have been on Metro's positions. There are 11 filled positions, but those employees have been on our payroll and will continue to be on our payroll and benefits directly.
So at some point in time, will LEDA take over the payroll of these employees?
At this point in time, that's not contemplated. That might change in the future as we go forward, but right for the way that the agreement's laid out with between Metro and LEDA is that the 17 positions that are loaned to LEDA are working for and continue to be Metro employees.
Are these employees carrying out the task that they would have done directly under economic development within the city?
To some extent, yes, but some of those roles are shifting a bit as we find what's going to be best practice and what's going to help Louisville be most successful in its economic development efforts. Largely speaking, the employees in economic development, when they were working for Louisville Metro Economic Development Department, were focused on job retention, attraction, and growth. And that's the same thing they'll be doing in LEDA. The individual functions are going to shift a bit, and some of the focuses are going to shift a bit. But largely, they'll be focused on the same amount of work.
Hey, I can't, I'm trying to get, go ahead, sir.
I was just saying that they'll largely be focused on the same work, even if roles shift slightly.
So if we didn't have LEDA, are you saying that we would not have these employees?
No, if we had LEDA, we would, the employees currently are Louisville Metro employees, so if LEDA goes away, or is dissolved, the employees would remain with Louisville Metro, and we would absorb them back into the Economic Development Department.
Okay, so just going back to my colleague talking about, well, what's the difference between GLI and LEDA, and I just wanted to know, can GLI do the same thing that LEDA was doing?
I can't speak for GLI's organizational capacity. I can speak for what, again, the difference between GLI being a regional entity. So they represent the 15-county region. They don't just represent Louisville Metro government in our interests. LEDA represents just Louisville Metro government and our economic development interests. We are part of a region. We work very closely with GLI, but at the end of the day, having a regional and local economic development organization be one and the same presents many challenges in terms of shielding projects. When projects come in to GLI, they could go to any number of places. They could come to Louisville, or they could be going to Bullitt County, or they could be going to Shelby County. So we're, in essence, competing with one another as GLI brings a project in. If GLI and LEDA or GLI was doing one and the same, they'd have to have basically their staff shielding one another from the project within the same organization, which creates some real challenges. This is something, that's a model that, frankly, Indianapolis does, and it creates some real challenges for them in how they attract projects throughout the region and into the city of Indianapolis.
So I'm just going to make a comment. I'm going to end with a comment. I'm a little concerned with LEDA's board and it seems like everything is exclusive and privileged. I'm concerned about that because they're using taxpayers' dollars. So I'm really concerned about the formation of LEDA and the exclusiveness, considering that they're using taxpayers' dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. At this point, there are some folks who are logging back in, and so what I'm going to do is ask first those folks who haven't had a chance, and I will have you in order when you log back in. So if you see your name in and I've skipped you, it was, I guess you could say, intentional. So here goes. Councilman Herndon.
Can LEDA quietly option properties? But since they...
Not right now.
Right, and you're saying that they're going to continue to be funded by us, either direct subsidy or by employees?
That's
so
correct.
They will not be able to do that for the foreseeable future.
Right,
Isn't that a big tool to lose? With a totally privately funded, like the Downtown Development Corporation and many cities, for example, totally privately funded, therefore can quietly option properties ahead of an announcement of another property. Isn't that a valuable tool that we'll be missing for the foreseeable future, if not for the future?
It is a valuable tool that we are missing, but we are missing it today as it exists. So I think that's something that we are in discussions with LEDA and Downtown Partnership, and how do we be more how are we more directly playing in the real estate market to get opportunities or go after challenges that exist in the works in the environment. So that is, today, LEDA is not that group. I'm not saying that it won't be in the future. It's something that we are having a discussion between Metro and our groups that do economic development here to figure out what's the best way to handle property redevelopment in the community.
Having come from the partnership and knowing DDC, for example, because they were always funded primarily by the ballpark money, they were not able to do that. So back in the day when 4th Street Live came here, they were not able to go up and down 4th Street and quietly option all that property and make it a bigger, better project. And and to this day, those 2 blocks of 4th Street are still woefully underserved. And that weakness that bore that bad fruit then, it still seems to be in place, and that is of concern to me.
Yeah, and I think, and again, and this was in the downtown strategy that was approved last year. I mean, this is creating a downtown development fund to do just this work is something that is in the works. It's good. This muscle for us is greatly atrophied, so it's something that and this is not just Metro government. This is just as citizens, we have to figure out how we're going to best approach this work. It's a tricky business, and trying to come up with a model that works and is transparent, but able to do quiet options and things like that is something that we are working through.
Okay, well, it's been, as I said, 20 years, and we're still doing the same thing, and that's not helpful to me. So I just want to point that out. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Owen? I'm sorry, Councilwoman Chapel, and then Councilman Owen.
Thank you so very much. All right, so sorry, a lot of notes. At the last budget hearing, and this was last year, you expected the MOA, the Memorandum of Agreement, to be signed in early July 2024, but that agreement actually wasn't signed until January 27th, 2025. You cited that jobs in Louisville and Metro have doubled since implementing the LEDA model. To my knowledge, we have yet to receive a quarterly report from LEDA, and given that Louisville Metro has supplied LEDA with money and resources and employees for nearly a year now, I think that we're due at least a few of these quarterly reports. When can we expect any oversight and insight into this quasi-governmental arm of our economic development department? And also, will these reports show how much LEDA has raised in private funding to date?
So Louisville Metro Economic Development has been providing quarterly reports, and we've been doing that for a number of years. I think I just submitted my last quarterly report a couple weeks ago.
LEDA specifically?
Well, Louisville Metro Economic Development does. We include the LEDA activities on that report. So that, and we do not include the private funds raised to date on that report right now.
Okay. My office has noticed a sharp decline in communications with the economic development, especially over the last year, and especially as it relates to small businesses. This could be tied to your 2.3% turnover rate, which is about 7% higher than Louisville Metro's average rate for turnover. But beyond a Metco loan, I'm unaware of any small business resources, and it sounds like that South End Small Business Development Fund that you were talking about, that's $3 million, that was going to be kind of inflating the Metco loan program. So is there any budgetary support for small businesses in Louisville Metro beyond loans?
Yeah, we have had some turnover in our small business staff. So that is the bulk of where our turnover has happened in economic development. We've had several of our Metco staff turnover, and we've also had, again, our small business managers turnover as well. So right now we are down one Metco person and down 2 small business team members. So that's been the decline. And again, we've held some of those positions. We've gone through interview processes for those positions and not necessarily been able to fill them with the candidates that have come forward. We've then kind of, as we think about small business and how we do a better job at attracting and working with small business, we've held those positions back. And again, as we've hired a CEO, we want to make sure the CEO was bringing on people that he thought was going to be best beneficial for the organization. In terms of what Metro offers directly for small businesses, right now our tool is the Metco loan product. That is the tool that we have. The state does have a small business tax credit. And again, the South End Business Development Fund is not, we were going to run it out of the Metco program, but Metco in the past has run grant programs. And our goal, I think in the budget language, it specifically says this, we are hoping to do a mix of loans and grants. So again, we would do loans typically we would do loans for operating capital and grants for capital improvements.
Sure, that leaves a lot to be desired, especially as I hear small businesses wanting to have help and also have a little coaching and have access to those resources, and sometimes those can be a lot of red tape. But I'm also failing to understand, with LEDA having, I have conflicting numbers here, but between 6 and 10 vacant positions, and now you just spoke about 3 positions that are vacant with your small business portion. It sounds like you have to be very aggressive at hiring, given that we're about 90 days out in hiring any candidates and you're having trouble sourcing any candidates. Is it realistic that you're going to fill these, and are there priorities placed on LEDA employees over small business?
Let me clarify our openings. In Louisville Metro Economic Development Department, we don't have any openings. In LEDA, we have 6 vacant positions.
But you just said you had 3 open positions.
I have those 3 positions. The small business team is going to work for LEDA. So the small business positions are in those 6. Those 3 positions I spoke of are in those 6 positions that are at LEDA.
Okay. Last question. Why create a $3 million East End Infrastructure Fund with no plan for implementation, especially since we see greater need for this money throughout the community?
I think that there's great infrastructure need in the East End as it's seeing development happen. So I think that while we have great needs all over our community, I think the point of the fund was to get some of the projects that have been kind of not going as quickly as they could to speed them up so that we can address some of the challenges that we're facing in the East End, specifically related to road conditions.
Do you have a list of those projects?
We have a list of projects that are needed in the East End. I can share those with you.
I would love to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. So colleagues, I'm looking at the time. We're going to run over. It's unavoidable at this point. There are still 3 people in the queue who have not had a chance to ask a question. I intend to call on those 3 and let them ask a question. We do have another hearing scheduled after this one, so we're kind of up against it. We will do a callback and ask you guys to come back at a later date to finish, because there are several people in the queue who have follow-up questions. If you have a question that you'd like to fire an email to them between now and when they come back so that they're prepared for it, that would be great. But we will schedule a callback for you, because there will be other questions in addition to the ones that are already in the system. So that's where we are. Councilman Owen.
Thank you, Chair. Jeff, thanks for being here. You and I have talked a lot about housing, and I'm very encouraged. I know this about you, and that you think housing development is economic development. I think that's really important. So I'm really glad to hear you say that. I guess my question is around the proposed budget. From my perspective, when I just go through, and this, it's in the budget, it's hard sometimes to identify things that are targeted for specific things. But it looks to me like we have fewer dollars going toward housing incentives in this year's budget, including the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, than we did last year. And so it's concerning to me that, that we're kind of backing off in that investment at a very critical time when you can't really do economic development without housing development. So I just wanted to get your take on the level of funding that's proposed so far and how that may or may not hold back some of the economic development we're working on.
Well, I think that there's still a significant amount of money that's proposed to go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in this budget. I think the important thing to remember is we've got some we made some significant changes in state law to help with the state incentives to help us do affordable housing without direct funding. So we had a change in the industrial revenue bond law that allows now for multifamily housing with more than 48 units. I don't know where the 48 came from, but that's one. And then the changes to the TIF law that remove a net new analysis, which has historically constrained the amount of state return a TIF can receive. So those, I think the idea is like, let's see if we can get some of those tools to work as we bring private development in. And I think also there's some support that we're needing to help with housing projects. So whether it's the East End Infrastructure Fund or the South End Business Development Fund, we're again trying to get some of these amenities that go along with the housing that's come in those areas so that we can try to reduce some of the stress around the development cases as they go through the Planning Commission.
Thank you. And I'll just say quickly, and then I'll be done. I very much look forward to working with the administration in very short order to do some changes in the Land Development Code to help promote housing. I know there's work that we can do there, so I'm looking forward to that. And then also trying to work to reduce the timeline that it takes to get through that development process. Those are things I'm very much looking forward to, and I think will help in that conversation. Thank you.
Councilman Hawkins.
Thanks for being here. You guys are located in the 4400 building or the 444. Okay, you have plans to move, right?
I do not have plans to move. The Louisville Economic Development Alliance is looking to move out of the building.
Okay, wouldn't it be more economical to stay in the building for funding wise? What is the reason to move?
Again, that move would be funded by LEDA to move out of the building, so I can't speak to that.
Okay, you can't
so
speak to
I'm
that.
not moving. My office is staying where it is now. So.
Right, okay, well, you can't speak to that, and, I know that, which leads me to my next question, as far as you saying that LEDA is gonna be getting more, needs more people. Well, what about the people that are already there? You have people that are already there in economic development that feel like that their job is in jeopardy. Why not fill those positions with those people that are already there?
All the people that are in LEDA or were in Metro are going to LEDA.
Okay. Next question real quick is, What do you all do for small and large minority-owned businesses located west of 9th Street?
So we, again, our small business tool is the Metco loan tool. For large businesses, the only tool that we have available is, well, we don't have any tools.
Okay.
Metco is the tool.
All right.
Because of the West End Opportunity Partnership, the typical tools such as KBI and TIF are off the table. Those, any tax-based incentives have to be committed through the West End Opportunity Partnership Board.
Okay, so you send them to the WEOP, then, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that doesn't guarantee funding, and we don't have anybody from the WEOP here today, right, to speak to the WEOP. So I guess my question is, what does economic development do, and what does the West End Partnership do for small minority businesses, small or large, west of 9th Street?
Again, we try to create, so if there's an opportunity and they're able to take a loan for, from Metco, we will work with them on the Metco loan process. We will also connect them to small business resources. We have a cadre of organizations that we work with in this community to give businesses the coaching and help that they need. And, you know, in certain instances, the state cabinet and Louisville Metro will get creative in trying to help businesses locate in the West End.
Okay, so you're gonna get creative, so you're still sending people to the WEOP board, and you're not saying anything about what the WEOP board can do. So should we not recommend them to go to the WEOP board and just kind of like stick to either if economic development can help them or not? Because you're sending people to the WEOP board, and they're just like, well, they just sent it to the WEOP board for anything that is west of 9th Street.
Yeah,
And I'm trying to figure out why.
I don't mean to characterize it that we're just sending them to the board and then we walk away. I think we try to facilitate a conversation with the West End Opportunity Partnership and try to create a situation by which we are helping the business get the help that they need. So again, we had an example is Good Brothers Pharmacy, which has a Metco loan from us. They went to we worked with them and gave them, our Metco loan manager gave them a support letter to go to the West End Opportunity Partnership, and they did receive a loan from the West End Opportunity Partnership.
Okay, well, I sit on that board,
Yeah.
so I know everything about the West End Partnership Board, but I'm still, I guess I have to ask in a few different ways, and this is it, Chair. What are we here for if we're sending them just to this board? Because the West End Opportunity Partnership was not put in place to give loans. When it was first there, it was not put in place for it to be a loan. So is that what we're transitioning this to? Or why are economic development put in place and we're sending them to other, you know, like, because we also have to fund the West End Opportunity and these other, you know, places too. So that takes away from economic development. So I'm just trying to see the pipeline that's going down, just so I'll know, you know, because we may need to call them in to see, you know, if I just am curious on why you all are sending people other places on stuff that you all are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think we're trying to, these are all deals that need incentives. So we are working directly with the client. When it comes to the incentives, if there's not anything else for us to do from an incentive standpoint, or they want a tax-based incentive, they've got to go to the WEOP board and get approved for that. So in those cases, we sit down with Laura Douglas and her team and try to structure a deal that they think can get approved by the board, and which would mirror something similar that we could offer to any other business in this county.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Last year, I sat in the chair next to this one, and one of the favorite retorts that the budget chair would offer would be, is there a budget question in there somewhere? So as we move forward with the rest of our meeting today and then on in, if we could remember that we're trying to figure out the budget, and so if you have a question specific to the budget, please, this is the right environment. If we're getting outside of how this affects dollars and cents, if we could limit those conversations to a different opportunity. Councilman Joseph. Oh, before this, I should note that Councilman Dan Syme joined us some time ago, and I forgot to announce that. So, Clerk, if you could please let the record reflect. Councilman Joseph.
Thank you for being here. I think I have the easiest and most complex question. how do we determine what the south end is versus the east end versus the west end?
I think that's a great question. I think that's something as we develop what the program guidance is, I think that's something that we will be in contact with the members that we may consider South End, and you all might give us some different feedback on that. So I don't think we want to, again, I'd say I've characterized like Preston Highway and Dixie Highway. I didn't say where the north cutoff was. Obviously, the south cutoff for both of those is the county line. But I think that's where we'd look for some guidance on that, and we'll be happy to work with you on what that geography is specifically.
And the budget implication there is the way that the money is being split between those different groups, right?
Yeah, that was the question. If each are getting $3 million, you know, we talked with the mayor, and he had brought up the potentially Bardstown South, but then you talk to someone on Dixie Highway, and that's not necessarily going to be what they're going to consider the south end. I just wanted to have an idea of what we expect to be the south end, and the south end gets the south end's $3 million that they earn.
Fair enough, and how those funds are distributed. Great. Was that I didn't mean to interrupt, was that your last question? Great, thank you. Everyone that's left in the queue has had a chance to ask a question before. I've got several questions myself, so I'm looking forward to having you ask back. Beth or LaTanya will let you know when your callback is scheduled for. I would ask my colleagues, please, two things. First, if you were in the queue right now, you already had questions, please write those down so that when we come back, you won't have forgotten why you were in the queue in the first place. And then secondly, if you would please forward your questions to either LaTanya or Beth. They will process all of the questions that we have, and that way, instead of Jeff getting 6 repeated questions, they will get, we'll send on the one question only. So if you could share those with LaTanya and Beth, I'd appreciate it. That brings us to the conclusion of the hearing for economic development. Thanks, Jeff, for being here. Thanks, Ms. Dunn. We'll take just a moment break to get codes and regulations set up. So folks, if you need to take just a 2-minute quick snap out of here and snap back, we'll start back soon. Okay, colleagues. It would appear Codes and Regulations is ready to begin. Given that, if I could call you back to your seats. Welcome back. I'm Kevin Kramer, again, Chair of the Budget Committee. With me today is our Vice Chair, Marcus Winkler. He has stepped out for a moment, but will be returning shortly. Other committee members who are here with us, Councilwoman Parrish Wright, Councilman Lininger, Councilwoman McCraney, Councilmember Reno Weber, Councilmember Owen, Councilmember Parker, Councilmember Piagentini, Councilmember Hudson, Councilwoman Mulvey Woolridge. We're joined online by Councilman Syme. Also in the chambers with us are Councilwoman Purvis, Councilwoman Hawkins, Councilman Joseph, Councilman Herndon. I think that's everyone. As is the case, we're going to jump right in with questions, if you may.
Yes, sir.
Our last hearing today is with Codes and Regulations. I'd like to welcome their new director, Richard Price, to the chambers. As a reminder, departments will not make opening comments, and we will begin immediately with council member questions. The Codes and Regulations FY26 proposed operating budget is $19.2 million. Codes and Regulations rely solely on general fund and agency funds for their operating budget. Let me start off by asking about the 18 positions that were funded in the department's FY24 budget due to the rental registry ordinance. Due to the recent changes to the rental registry requirements, are the 18 positions still needed, or have these positions been assigned other duties? I'd also ask how many of those 18 were actually hired. I know we put the money in the budget, but I also know there was some hiring is sometimes difficult. So how many of those 18 have been hired? And due to the changes, how do we intend to deal with those?
Okay, thank you. Yes, we have hired a total of 17 from Rental Registry, and we have redirected the work. Now, keep in mind, some of them, when I say redirected the work, most are still working with, partly with the rental registry in regards to the lead registry, because we still got to look at the lead and work with the health department to ensure that we are abating the lead that's in some of these rental properties. So yes, we have redirected most of the work to the ones that that we didn't need under the rental registry anymore. So, but we did our 17.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Purvis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Price, for being here. Just want to first start off by commending your team, Mr. Crow and the other ones, for always acting expeditiously when I have an urgent request. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I only have 2 questions for you. I just want to know, all of your positions filled?
No, not all of them is filled.
No, okay. And you think they'll be filled by this year, or?
Yeah, there are plans to fill all of the positions. I think, people have been staying with us now, which is a good thing. Hope that means that people are putting a good word out, that Codes and Regulations is a good place to work, and so we plan to fill it.
Okay. And, I've always been concerned about the fact that you all are complaint-driven instead of randomly driving the neighborhoods. And I see so much in the West End districts that I drive. It is overwhelming to have to write down everything and then report everything. Your department is one department that I communicate with weekly on some deficiencies, but I would really like to see you all do random inspections, or as you're driving through the community, you see something, stop, cite it, what have you, instead of us having to call you, because most of the time, residents, constituents, they see so much blightness, it becomes the norm for them, and it's not normal. And I would really not like to know if you're looking to put in a plan of action where you all drive these districts see these deficiencies and address them instead of people having to call and tell you about a property that has grass or trash or what have you. And last thing I'm going to say is there are some cases where you can't see the deficiencies, but people are calling and complaining that you all keep showing up. But then there are some cases where you can see these deficiencies and there's no aggression on these cases at all. So I'm confident that you're going to address this. And at some point in time, I would like to spend probably 2 solid days with you driving through the district.
Yes, okay. Thank you for that question. Complaint-driven code enforcement doesn't work anymore, to be honest with you. When in regards to efficiency, in regards to, and the last 14 months have, certified that that is true even for codes and regulations in Louisville, Kentucky. The best way to do code enforcement now, number one, is data-driven. We got to be data-driven. We got to look at the data. A lot of these individuals, property owners, slumlords, are repeat offenders, okay? And we deal with a lot of people and a revolving door of complaints. So I've been challenging my team to make that pivot, okay? We got to pivot from complaint-driven to data-driven. So we got to take that mentality. And then essentially we need technology. We got to have technology. AI, the industry has moved past, has evolved to the point where there is AI technology out there to do exactly what you just said, that as we drive along, it would identify these violations, and then we can put together a strategic plan to abate some of those violations. So I assure you that we're working on that. We are going that way to be more of a data-driven code enforcement department.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Shamika Parrish-White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here, Director Price.
Thank you for having me.
I quickly want to give my disclaimer because I tried to focus my questions around budgetary issues and concerns. One, the questions and things that I ask about are from our constituents. I could imagine my colleagues, as well as myself, get a lot of calls about codes and regs issues, but I want to thank you I actually respect your leadership and respect the way you show up in community. And when we had a landlord and renter solution, you came and that really helped a big deal. Although on another end, I have questions around the timeliness of people getting their notices. That's one thing that a lot of people are complaining about, meaning by the time they get their notices, the deadlines and stuff have passed and they're trying to appeal those processes. So is that related to, I know that Councilwoman Purvis brought up your vacancies. Is that related to hiring issues? Is there something that can be done to make sure these notices are in a timely manner? I'm not saying they're all like that because I believe in equity of enforcement. That's why I didn't join Piangentini's slow clap, because there are parts of the county that feel like, or in city who feel like they get more codes and regs issues addressed than others. There's a lot of complaints, and me and my colleagues that represent South and Southwest are lifting up all these issues. So just know that these are coming from constituent concerns. So the first question is, how are you all working on the deliverance of these notices?
Well, thank you for that question. It's not because of lack of staff.
Okay.
It's the mail system, okay? We got to fix it. We are slave to the Postal Service in getting the mail out in a timely manner. Just today, I was brainstorming ways, I met with one of our partners from Ptolemy, Slate, and we was talking about, sending out notices. And one of the things he was talking about in other cities, they use email. So most property owners is required to have an email address, And that way, we can send the notices much quicker electronically than through the mail system. Our biggest issue is the mail system, to be honest with you. And, but we try to manage that as good as we can. We work with people that do get notices late. If they make me aware of it, I'm always fair to make sure that if we need to take away a citation or work some other process, we do that. But we are aware that it is a problem, and we're working to get it done.
Thank you, and I've noticed that on a personal level with the discretion and some of your folks that do come out willing to follow up with additional information. So I know that some of that is happening. We just get a lot of calls about, like the other council people are saying about who's calling, how many times we have to call. So we're trying to make sure we're giving them answers that match with what your office can do. My second question is, I got a message from a constituent that said that they are hearing that there's a new special task force called CREST, which is apparently an acronym, but they're allegedly, the goal is Special Task Force to aggressively target the West End. If that is, if you have, I know you said you can't just be complaint-driven. If you have these types of task force, have you allocated for that in your costs? Are you seeing, you know, other areas of town where you're using more of your budget to, you know, to remedy the issues? And if these things are happening, how can we work together to be able to let the constituents know what's happening?
Okay. So CREST, and I'm proud of this special task force. CREST stands for Code and Regulation Enforcement Special Task Force. Since I've been here the last 14 months, one of the biggest barriers to getting things done is follow-up. What I found, and if you look at the data, we have a number of cases where we've been there 72 times, 95 times, 40 times. And that is unacceptable. So the day-to-day ordinary code enforcement individuals cannot timely get these things done. There are special cases, mainly safety type cases, and repeated offenders and unable to find landlords and property owners. That is what I dispatch CREST to do. It's a pilot program essentially right now because I want to see if I can put together a group of people from, you know, my building, zoning, property maintenance division that can work together as a team and abate some of these constant problem issues. That we can get there faster. Another thing that I'm trying to do is educate the public. Educate the public on what we do, how we do it, and why we're there. And so they can be a partner and be able to give information to us to help us do our job. So CREST is a pilot program with those individuals I just discussed. It's not putting a strain on the budget because these are individuals who's working within their classification. Okay. But just working more as a team to be targeted. Now, I want to be clear, it's absolutely not to target the West End. Okay. However, you know, 70% of our cases are west of 9th Street, okay? Some of the most difficult and complex cases are west of 9th Street. So I need this task force working down there to abate and to help and not to harm. And that's what I think I have not done a good job since I've been in here the last 14 months, is getting the word out of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and more importantly, how they can help, because they can help us a lot.
Thank you, and I hope you call in my office for that. And the last question is, between the lead registry and the monies that you all collect from fines and fees, what is the trickle back? How does that come back to your budget? Is it a certain percentage? How is that going? And do you see an increase in that relates to your recent activities in the last, since you've been here?
I know we have collected a lot from the university, but how that comes back, I'll let Angie answer that question.
Angela Dunn, Chief Financial Officer. The property maintenance funds that are collected through the Office of Management budget, it's around $5 million a year is typically what it averages. You know, it fluctuates a little bit. Those monies are they go directly into the general fund. And then, you know, the general fund is then what gets distributed among all of the various departments. So there isn't a direct correlation necessarily, but that money that's collected for fines, it goes into the general fund, and then codes and regulations is funded through the general fund. So sort of in an indirect way, that money obviously contributes, what we collect obviously contributes to the general fund as a whole, that then supports codes and regs in their total appropriation that they get.
And the last part of that, where, as it relates to the same question, what happens with the rental registry? Is it back in the same way? Just because I don't have my notes in front of me.
I'm not as familiar with the rental registry, so we might have to get back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Just as an immediate follow-up, the question about the money going into the general fund that comes out of codes and regs, is there an incentive, or are we considering an incentive for codes and regs to actually follow up on and make sure we're collecting these fines? And when people refuse the fines or don't pay them, we had set it up where they went through a code enforcement board, so that instead of going into the courts, because when it goes into the courts, the state gets that money. If we send it to the code enforcement board, we get that money. Is there some incentive in place? Because if what you're saying is, yes, codes and regs, we appreciate you're doing this, you're doing a great job, you know, but when you collect the fines, all that's going in the general fund, and it may or may not impact your budget in the future. That's not a great incentive for codes and regs to follow up and make sure those fines are actually being paid. So is there some kind of an incentive in place to make sure that, or to give codes and regs an incentive to make sure they do this?
Well, I think, and Director Price may want to add to this, but, you know, I believe that the two agencies work very close together in a partnership. You know, I think there's a lot of interaction between the two teams in terms of understanding some of the specifics behind you know, especially when we get into like delinquencies, right? When you're talking about multiple fines that have added up over time, we maybe are looking at placing liens or pursuing some sort of, you know, court action if necessary. You know, those are the types of interactions that we have with codes and regs back and forth. So I believe there is a partnership. I don't know if I would call it a monetary incentive, but there's definitely a partnership. It's sort of this ecosystem that exists together, right? So without the collection, the successful collection of those fines, the general fund is most certainly impacted, and then that impacts codes and regs as well, along with, you know, other agencies. So.
And I would add that it's important to get every case out of circuit court into code board. And that's another thing we've been working to do, help with the ordinance change that we had this past year to do just that. And listen, as Angie said, you know, we work as a partnership, and, you know, my 14 months, I haven't had any issues with funding to do the work that we've been trying to do.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Hawkins.
Thank you, Chair. I only have two questions, but I do want to go off the grid for a second. First, I want to say thank you, Richard. You have came in this position, boot straight to the ground. I call you, you jump right to the West End, eat wherever. And I appreciate that. That speaks volume about your character, you know, and that you care. And it means a lot to me. So anything, honestly, that y'all need, I don't think y'all got enough money. So if you need some more, let me know, whatever, okay?
Will do.
But I wanted to ask, I know this is something that was in your plan when you first came up, when you first came in, and that is that I understand that it's not, you guys are not complaint-driven, but I want to make sure that you're looking also in the set of lenses on the people that make the calls and don't be developer-driven. Because I found that developers are targeting the West End area, calling in on a lot of these houses that they see fit, that they want to take over. So if they can get, you know, if they can get this house with a lot of fans and, you know, so just looking at it, not so much as just complaint-driven, I'm going to say developer-driven, developers that want to kind of come over and they riding in areas that they want. So just making sure that the people taking those calls are looking at that.
Absolutely.
I know that you said that second shift. Is there anything in the budget that allows, because a lot of things I know that you have not been able to see is after 5 o'clock or after 6 o'clock. You know, you really don't see you all out there, and it's hard. You have to wait until the next day. So I know you were speaking on maybe possibly putting that in the budget about having second shift. That was something that you spoke on when you first came. And then as far as having a program, is that implemented anywhere in there that I didn't see it, where seniors, you know, let's say if they had gutters that were falling off of their homes, right? And code enforcement went back several times and, you know, kept giving them, citing them. There was a program that I know that you were looking to implement to have a group or a task force over here that came in and fixed those issues and then charged them for it, but at least you knew it was fixed. Basically, you know, was that anywhere in there that I missed in the budget?
Well, in regards to the gutters, I think are you speaking about
That was
when
just
a
an example.
property owner
Yeah, yes, sir.
would not fix their property?
Or they didn't have anyone, let's say a senior.
Okay.
Yeah, was that anywhere, did I miss that anywhere, or that's on down the line? I
Well, I
know
know-
it was, I know you were supposed to implement it, I just didn't know if that was gonna be maybe for next year in the budget. I just wanna make sure that I didn't miss that anywhere in the budget.
Yeah, so I know in regards to a property, like a senior that cannot fix, they have a property maintenance issue, they have a property alleviation program in housing. Now, I will say about that program that I have looked into that, and we got to fix it where it's not so complicated for a senior to get to it.
Okay.
So, yes, we're working on that to help that process, but I think that that's the process people need to know about. And again, I think, you know, we at Codes and Regulations, we need to educate more, get the word out, so people will have this type of information to do that. In regards to second shift, I think we're to the point where we need a second shift. You
Is it
know,
in the budget?
We absolutely do. But with that being said, you know, I gotta do the research because, you know, this work is very difficult. It's very aggressive, and we're going to need we're going to need more than just 1 or 2 or 3 people. We're going to need a full staff, and I need to research and evaluate what that looks like before I can present to OMB or my boss about maybe funding a full second shift. Now, one of the things that I'm doing goes back to CRES. You know, CRES, I got them working some of our, you know, issues that we can't see during the day, that they are working at night.
Okay.
To go look at some of these issues and targeting some of the things, complaints that come in about the things that illegal junkyards, that work at night and so on and so forth. So that's part of my pilot program with CRES, and I'm gathering information to see. I do believe we need a second shift, let me say that. But what that looked like and what the cost of what that looked like, I'm still doing the research on it.
Okay, so it's not in the budget, right?
No, not this budget cycle, no.
Thank you, Councilman Piagentini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to clarify my slow clap for not doing complaint-driven is, which I think hopefully my colleague will actually agree. I'll just juxtapose my district with some of my colleagues' districts. My district would call codes and regs 17 times a day for a sign that's a 1/4 inch askew. And if you're doing it just by complaints, my district would have a fleet of codes and regs people coming out that way, and that's not necessarily the highest priority thing that's coming up. So I think doing it in a more, I think data is exactly right, 100%. If AI is going to help any department, I think it's going to be yours, by the way. And doing it in a way that again, takes all of the data and says, here's our real problems, here's a good citizen trying to clean things up, don't, you know, keep them updated, but, you know, don't get up their shorts. This is where a developer is trying to do something weird, right? Understanding that in a more comprehensive way is the solution. and which comes to my budget question.
Absolutely.
Because unlike my wonderful esteemed colleague from District 1, I have some concerns with the amount of money we're spending here, okay?
Okay.
And that's not to say that I haven't been very happy with the direction of codes and regs, I truly have. But to be realistic, I'm looking at the historical spend for codes and regs. It was basically flat 2018, 19, 20, and since has exploded. From 21 to current recommended, it went from, 11 million to 17 million. This is, and I looked it up, this is roughly a 3x speed compared to inflation over the same period. So this is way faster growth than just about any other department that I can think of in the city. I mean, this is very, very fast budgetary growth. So so number one, I just want to put on our radar screen that if you want to go to second shift or whatever the story is, I'm not against those ideas, but we need to figure out ways to get more efficient with your department, because if these types of increases are maintained, you're going to start crowding out dollars in other departments. We don't have the growth in the city to maintain that kind of budgetary growth. And with that said, we did change, and look, I'm not relitigating it to be super clear, but we did change the rental registry. When that was first proposed in last year's budget, it was assumed that 18 positions would be there just to enforce that. Now, we didn't eliminate it. It's not completely gone, but it's, significantly trimmed down from what it was originally assumed to be. So what I don't see here, what I'm confused by is, I would assume even if you wanted to grow the department, that it might be flat because you could reassign, I'm gonna make a number up, 10 of the 18 positions to regular or other codes and regs priorities. So the growth would be sort of slowed because of that. But that's not the case. As a matter of fact, the growth is twice the growth from 24 to 25. So can you talk about what you're doing or have done with the positions that are being reallocated because we made these legislative changes? And so that's the specific question, and then talk more about the overall growth of this department and how we can, rein this in, but still provide a high level of services.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to stick my chest out, actually, about the growth, because I'm a very aggressive leader, okay? When I came to codes and regulations, a lot of issues, and I respect my predecessor, I do. However, the citizens of Louisville deserve more visual presence from codes and regulations. They deserve education. They deserve code enforcement in a way that gets results. And I feel like that I've come in and I've sounded the alarm that we gotta get with it and get this work done. Now, we've spent a lot. I've had a lot of people out working. I've put new positions in place. One of the issues, one of the extreme barriers with codes and regulations when I came is the leadership gaps. You had the director and one assistant director and a bunch of supervisors. You can't run a business like that. You got to have organization. So I've added a couple of executive administrators, another assistant director. I'm sure that's added to the cost, but it's part of the organization to run and streamline the business. Now, you spoke about the efficiency. The efficiency will come. It's tough to reorganize a department of this size in 14 months and get it to the efficiency where it needs to go. But I'm confident that we'll get there. In regards to the positions, the 10, that's the number you used, the 10 positions.
Just to be clear, I made up 10. It was 18 positions that were assumed to be part of implementing that law. So the question is, I'm assuming you still need a few of them, but how many of them do you actually need, and what are we doing with the balance?
For right now, I think, for now, and the jury is still out, for now, I need all of them, and here's why. So, I'm partnering with the health department to ensure that we abate the lead that's in our community. Now listen to this. So I've identified 30,000 rental properties that is not on the rental registry, okay? And 20,000 was built before 1978. So there's a potential for lead. Now, I need these guys and these ladies with a purpose and targeting these houses that it was built before 1970 to identify and look at lead. One of the things we have done, we have changed already, is alert our officers that when you at certain houses that was built in that time frame, look at, if you see bare ground, test it. If you get into the house, you see the crack in paint, we test it for lead so we can abate that. That's going to be a big undertaking. And we have developed, along with the health department, a workflow to make that efficient, and it's going to take people to do it. So you may be right, but I can't say that we don't need those individuals right now, because we really got to do some targeting as it relates to the lead.
So then, just as a final comment, I would say, okay, and look, right now, we have the budget to absorb this, and I think because you are running the department better, I think there's some latitude to do this. So I'm not complaining about the budget now. I'm just saying, if this growth continues, I can tell you there's going to come a day when we're gonna have to force departments to the ones that are growing this quickly, disproportionately to other departments, to make cuts or to reduce their growth rate. So I'm hoping that through, to your point, operating efficiencies and other, using technology, doing things that, you know, if we can get this to a more sustainable growth level, I think then we can assure that we have a good codes and regs department moving forward. I'm just sort of sounding the alarm now, so we don't find ourselves in, let's say, 2 years, going back and saying, oh, we got to cut back because we didn't identify this ahead of time.
Okay, thank you.
And then as far as the lead and the fully support, we need to remediate lead, zero question. I fully support moving that forward. I would ask, and I don't know how you're doing it, but just to be careful, because I do know, for example, one landlord that received, it was from the health department, not you all, I'll take it up with them, but a letter for lead abatement, and that house had actually been built in the 90s. They had leveled the house and rebuilt a new one.
Okay.
And then there were, you know, but they may not have had that in their records, so. But thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you for sounding the alarm on the growth. And as duly noted, and I'm gonna trust Angie and Aaron to ring me in.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Reno Weber.
We'll rein you in, but not yet, because there's still work to do.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, again, I will just echo my colleagues who've just really appreciated your leadership and your focus on getting things done. I know that when we first met, you know, one of the issues that we talked about was just the time it takes to approve and then to do some enforcement. Can you talk a little bit about the progress that has been made, and are you staffed to continue to measure that progress?
The progress on?
Around time to enforcement, time to permits, time to, once something is reported, can you get there and then do the enforcement pieces?
Yes, so you know, we have improved on that significantly. You know, I think that it's still nowhere near where we need to be. But I've changed the way, I'm trying some things to change up the way we do code enforcement, to set it up where you have your less experienced code enforcement officers be more like the, you know, the boots on the ground, the everyday, you know, just a general complaint type. And then we have a group that are investigators that tend to go out and look at things and be a little bit more proactive. And then I have Crest that would work together with all of it to bridge it together. The sense of urgency that I have, you know, challenged my department and my team to act and to work has made a difference in getting things done. Again, when I first came, the biggest thing was follow-up. We didn't follow up on anything, okay? And things laid there. And so we're doing better follow-up. We are getting there quicker. And I should have mentioned this earlier when I was talking about, you know, what we need to be now. And that is, I'm establishing partnerships with, you know, not only HOAs, being in the communities, but with developers, actually. You know, I'm got a quarterly meeting with CREA, the Kentucky Real Estate Investments Association. and use them as a partner. They got 900 members. Help us get the word out, okay? Help us get the word out that, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we've been aggressive, and here's how you can help. And it's working.
Excellent. I'm really glad to hear that. Do you have a specific technology roadmap? I mean, we've talked a lot about this as an area where there's a lot of opportunity, and this might be an Angie question as well, for what you would like to see or the resources that you think you're going to need.
Yeah, so there is technology in regards to property maintenance and zoning, that there's AI technology that can really, it's called City Detect, okay? You can place these cameras on your vehicles, and as you drive, you put the property maintenance code, the nuisance code, all of those codes, and AI learns it. And as they drive, you can drive 5 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour. It identifies, you got the land development code in there, and it identifies those violations. Now, my goal is to take that information with the analysts, and we can analyze it. Myself and Mr. Crow is going to make decisions on how we do code enforcement. And Councilman Piagentini, you're talking about reducing our footprint, is growing that. That's going to help. Now, I'm not in the business of, getting rid of jobs. Absolutely not. But it will put us in a position to be more efficient. And, the best thing I like about AI is that it's, it works 365 days a year, it never takes a vacation, never takes a sick day, never files a complaint. And, it's amazing. And I think with, I got enough smart people in my room to be able to take this technology and revolutionize code enforcement.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilman Lininger.
Thank you. So, as you know, my district is, neck and neck with District 4 for being the second highest in volume year to year for these, the problems that we have with code enforcement. Particularly, we have a lot of problems with vacant abandoned properties. So I have a couple questions around that. First, what is the average turnaround time for our problem properties and enforcement? And how many do we have that are outside of that turnaround time currently?
Well, unfortunately, we have so many problem properties in your district, okay? And I really can't identify. I will have to get those numbers specifically for you, what that turnaround time is. I do know we are targeting vacant and abandoned properties, okay? I'm working with Chief Humphrey with his crime plan to abate and number one, first of all, identify. We are specifically looking for vacant properties that are not secured. We're securing those properties and doing what we can to keep them secure, okay? And then we are keeping them clean. So if we engage the property owner, if we can, if we got some, if the property is not abandoned and we have an owner, we engage that owner to take care of his property and keep it secure. If they don't, then we do it, just to keep it going. That turnaround time, I don't have the specific numbers, but we act quickly on that. We really do, because I've declared an emergency for all vacant and abandoned properties, that they must be secured with clearboard, that we would not, so they won't burn down. So I can get you those numbers if you want them, the exact turnaround time specifically for your district and the vacant abandoned properties.
Yeah, and do we feel like we have enough staff for addressing this, or do we need an investment budgetarily, specifically on this problem?
No, I do not. I don't think we need, I need technology.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I need. Technology even would help with this situation, because again, the technology is there to identify these things. And instead of, as you can put these cameras on garbage trucks, police vehicles, every vehicle that's in the community and get that data.
Yeah, okay.
So technology is what's needed.
And then my final question, you spoke earlier about the problems that we have with slumlords, out-of-state landlords, large corporate buying, especially in the West End, that's really impacting the character and quality of our neighborhoods. If frequently, a problem that we have with this with enforcement is that they're hiding behind LLCs, layers of LLCs. Do we have any plans for staffing for research, for getting into the weeds on the LLCs that are, bad actors and trying to identify the common, people behind those LLCs and being able to really get some teeth in our enforcement? Do we have any plans for staffing for research?
Well, no. And there is technology we have now that we can try to find people. And I do have the staff to do that. We actually do that. Got to go deeper because it is so hard to find these people behind these LLCs. Maybe we need an ordinance change. And I hate to say that, but the reality is we got to fix these property owners, particularly the ones that are out of state. I got one now that we talked about today, Meadowwood. These property owners have set this LLC up where it's hard to even serve them.
Yeah.
The ordinance required us to give them notice. They have set this, they hide behind this LLCs and it makes it difficult for us to do our job. And I think that's where we need to go. We need to look at, maybe looking at adding something or changing the ordinance where they won't be allowed to do that. I'm always doing research on how we can get around, this game of cat and mouse with these people, with these LLCs and these out-of-town property owners.
Thank you. It's always good to talk with you, Director Price.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We have 4 people left in the queue. We're going to be over by just a few minutes. I hope that's
That's
okay.
fine. Yeah, that's fine.
4 people in the queue who haven't had a chance to speak, so
Absolutely.
I'd like to go ahead and allow that to happen. And then Councilor Reno Weber had an immediate follow-up to that question.
It's really following up on Councilman Linninger's, when you talk about those vacant properties, it's great if we can give him or us a thing, but really it'd be much better to reopen the VAPSTAT portal so we can all see the status of these vacant and abandoned properties. That would be an easy technology fix.
Yes.
And that was it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Purvis.
I'm sorry. Mr. Price, since there's been so many changes, who are you reporting to directly now?
I report to Jeff O'Brien.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. I've lost my mind, so.
You can always call me later.
But I wanted to say, Councilman Liniger is dead on it. Carmen and I, we spent a lot of times researching who owns this property and also realizing that sometimes these LLCs have another name. And, if you'd like, I'm sure Councilman Liniger would agree, maybe we can meet and see if we can create some type of legislation that would address this, because this is crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm open, yeah, absolutely, because I do think it's needed. I really do. I think we've come to a time that it was needed.
It's a lot of wasted time on you and your staff.
Yes.
So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilwoman Chapel.
Hello, Director Price. Thanks for being here today. You know
Thank you
that I
for
have an
having me.
affinity for our codes and regs department.
Right.
But, Councilman Piagentini was kind of sniffing down a trail. I don't think that we were going to the same destination, but we were on the same pathway. Just noticing your employees in fiscal year 24, you had 176. Now you're up to 201. The fines from your department, it looks like, have stayed pretty stagnant at $420,000 about. And my question isn't so much, you're not doing the work, because I know that you all are doing great work. You're there for our office anytime that we call. My legislative aide actually said that she's very thankful for codes and regs before we came in here. But I was just wondering, with your staff getting larger, your budget getting larger, and the fees staying stagnant, has there ever been a financial impact statement done to kind of look at raising the fines, because I know in a recent ad hoc committee meeting, we were talking about the Code Enforcement Appeals Board, and how that really doesn't bring in, but maybe I think $6,000 last year or some really piddly amount. And so the suggestion was raising the fines that people get paid, because a lot of people, they get fined and then they don't mind paying them, and then they just, continue about their day and, another fine, pay it, and the problem never gets fixed. And so I was just wondering, is this a matter of raising fines, and are we leaving money on the table? You're one of the few departments that actually makes money within Louisville Metro, and so whenever I see that, I see it as an opportunity for us to make more money.
I think we may be leaving some on the table. It may be time to look at it. That's a great idea. I hadn't thought about it. I will tell you this, though. When you're talking about the fines, stagnated, the amount of money that's coming in, we have been successful in engaging some property owners where we didn't have to give that citation, because the reality is we can't cite our way out of this huge issue that we have. So if it goes down, it's probably for the overall community a good thing. But in regards to the fines, yeah, absolutely. I think it may be time to do it. I know under the Construction Review Division, it's time to raise those fines and fees, on that one. So I would look into that. I would definitely give that some research.
Sure. And also in talking about fines, parking fines, are you all issuing parking tickets?
Yes, we are.
Is that on public right-of-way streets or just on properties that have improperly parked cars?
Improperly parked cars. Where they got, so we try to stay away from doing park job and leave LMPD's job, stay away from that. We only do the ones in the right of way that maybe have expired tags and become a nuisance. So we look at vehicles that have become a nuisance that's in the public right of way, that's become a nuisance, is the one that we really go after. And we do issue parking tickets, yes.
Thank you so much. Parking is just kind of like a hot potato.
It's a very hot potato.
LMPD, I'd look them in the eye and say I would be aghast if they issued a parking ticket anytime in the last year. Prove me wrong, but don't put that ticket on my car, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hawkins. Thank you. Councilman Winkler.
Thank you. I just really one or two very quick questions. In your objectives in the budget, you highlight the desire to reduce vacant and abandoned properties by 10%, ensure 100% compliance with the rental registry, and complete all Section 8 inspections within 14 days. My question is, do you think that this budget will enable you to hit those goals?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah, that is a very achievable goal with the budget I have now.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize I had a work call and missed the first part of the meeting, so if this has been asked, just tell me and you don't have to answer. But given the increase in staffing, I saw that your overtime budget is also set to increase 80%.
Yes.
Can you talk about why that is?
Well, first and foremost, we had a tough winter. So a lot of our unscheduled, I'm assuming that's what you're talking
Correct,
about.
yes, the unscheduled overtime.
The unscheduled overtime is driven a lot by our vacant lots division and partnering with Public Works to remove snow, okay? And we had a tough winter. Now, I will say on top of that, we have been doing some aggressive things that has led to overtime, like, we have this huge issue with the Kentucky Home Life building. We got to get that secured. We're working guys, there was scheduled overtime for things like that. So, but most of it's coming from the snow.
Okay, so snow aside, right? Hopefully,
Yeah.
once in a every few year event. In terms of the other unscheduled overtime, how many open positions do you have right now? And is the better answer adding a position or two, if you're able to fully staff, versus having more? I mean, again, there's I've asked this question multiple times, right? There's a tipping point where overtime's the better option until you sort of reach the cost of another fully burdened employee? Are you sort of regularly making that assessment to say, hey, we really got so much overtime that if I could increase my head count 2 or 3, we're better off?
Yes, I've looked at that.
Okay.
And snow aside, I
Yes.
think that, we have been really, really aggressive with code enforcement and trying to cut down on the response times and abating a lot of important issues. I hope that by doing that, individuals are getting the message that in this game of cat and mouse, that we're the cat and not the mouse, and then we won't have to do these things later on. So I see the overtime going down, non-scheduled overtime going down as relate, so snow aside. So I don't think there would be a need that I see to increase any staffing.
Okay, and I apologize. One last question.
That's
Because you're
okay.
talking about the snow, because this is the proposed budget for next year. So how is the snow factoring into next year's overtime?
Well, we don't know. I mean, you
Okay,
just
so
don't
you're
know,
just,
and it's best
you've got
to
it
be-
there, just, okay. Thank you very
It's best to
much.
be, yeah. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Herndon.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Lanier is correct that D6 and D4 are in a fight for the lead in a category we would rather not be in. So if you have best practice language that you find from another jurisdiction that can help us solve this LLC problem and find the bad actors, count me in as well with Councilwoman Purvis. I think we need to get down to business. I just want to let everybody know that I got my first constituent call a month after I won the primary, 6 months before I was sworn in, and I gave you a call, and you took care of business right quick, and you have done so every single time, and I want to commend you for the work that you're doing. I know what you inherited and what the job you got to do, and I say that to people when you're not in the room and we're not on camera. So I just wanted you to know that the feedback I've gotten has been universally positive as well. So please know that your scene is doing a great job, and I know we would all like to help you do that job even better.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Okay, no one else is in the queue. We're just a little bit over time, so I apologize for keeping you. It's more of a request of OMB. There is a project, I know you're going to love that this is where my brain is. There's a project called Comp Plan Review and Update. The budget was $46,960.92. It has been finished, and there is a remaining balance of 80 cents. So I'm hoping at some point we might wipe that off the books. Thank you. That concludes our hearings for today. Our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Note, please, that that's an earlier start than what we've been able to do heretofore. So look forward to being together for external agencies and public works.
Thank
See you guys Tuesday, the 20th, 3 o'clock.
I have the honor of representing District 19.
I represent District 1. At City Hall, we work to pass meaningful legislation that serves the best interests of our community, including the critical task of approving the city's budget.
Our top priority is ensuring the public safety